Just as Joe Biden scolding you, the American people, American business, corporations, small business, not paying your fair share, a bombshell new report from the Congressional Research Service, by the way, nonpartisan, showing that Biden himself, he might well owe $500,000 in back taxes to the U.S. federal government. By the way, where's the New York DA and the New York Attorney General when you need them? If it's Donald Trump, it's talk about jail and indictments for, company cars and company apartments and scholarships for children. Joe, he'll get the usual media mob protection program. And according to the report, Biden improperly avoided paying Medicare taxes before he took office. Joe, you and Hunter, you need to pay your fair share. You got to lead by example. We'll have a lot more about this. But first, we have other serious crises all around the country and world to cover.
Americans held hostage, abandoned behind enemy lines. Day 40.
Well, it's day 40. We're not forgetting on this program. Because imagine if it was you or somebody you love caught behind enemy lines, abandoned by Joe Biden in the new Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan. Remember, he said at the UN he's turned the page. He's not mentioned the Americans that he's abandoned, not once. In 23 days, he has totally turned the page. And tonight, the so-called businesslike and very professional Taliban, as the White House tells us, those terrorists, they just made a big announcement. Public executions, public amputations, they're back. Very professional, very businesslike of them. One Taliban official telling the Associated Press, quote, everyone criticized us for the punishments in the stadium, but no one will tell us what our laws should be, period. Now, what happened to all that leverage, Joe, that you were bragging about? We have all the leverage. Joe, you have no leverage. And Americans now are in the hands of terrorists. You abandoned them. What happened to the international pressure, Joe? What happened about the lectures you and Tony Blinken were giving the Taliban about inclusivity in their new Afghan government? You've made a lot of progress, right? Yeah, they're terrorists. They're standing right now in the international community, means nothing to them except they want you to keep giving them money. That would be called ransom. And God help all of our fellow Americans, their families, green card holders, all abandoned. Our Afghan allies, tens of thousands, abandoned by Joe. Now many of them will be murdered. It's plain and simple. He turned the page on Afghanistan, acting like it never happened, like there aren't Americans, aren't our allies, their families still hopelessly trapped behind enemy lines. I guess this is the Biden doctrine, we'll call it. You create a major crisis, one that was completely preventable, like it's not really happening. I just pretend it's not happening. Everything in Afghanistan, not happening. Inflation, it's not happening. $1.50 more a gallon, not happening. Unemployment, not happening. COVID, 300% increase from this time last year, not happening. And, of course, the months-long, out-of-control, utter, unmitigated catastrophe at the southern border, that's not happening either. And today, in the midst of all these serious crises, well, guess what Joe Biden was doing? Absolutely nothing. He decided to take the day off. No public events, no speeches, no high-profile meetings, just a day off for the hell of it in the middle of the week. Well, I take that back. He did have lunch with Vice President Kamala Harris, our border czar, who never goes to the border, at 12:30. It was a big day. They might have even had cocktails. Who knows? You know who did not have a day off? Our Customs and Border Patrol agents, they're not getting days off. They're now dealing with a crisis of epic proportions every single hour of every day. And they're dealing with people with a high rate of COVID positivity. And the Border Patrol themselves have had a high rate. And even some of those agents have died. The biggest super spreader of all super spreader events, Joe Biden, courtesy of you. Make no mistake, Biden caused this disaster, every other disaster, now begging OPEC for energy. None of this would have happened if Donald Trump was president. Going back to the days of, feigning outrage over Donald Trump's mean tweets. To me, kind of seems appealing right now. Somebody that controlled the borders, somebody that was believed by the international community that he'd blow you to smithereens, just like he did the Caliphate and ISIS, and just like he did with Soleimani and Baghdadi and associates and the al-Qaeda leader in Yemen. They believed he'd do it. Joe and Kamala, they told these migrants to come. Joe ended catch and release. He abolished Trump's stay in Mexico policy. He stopped the border wall construction. Now, yep, since Joe's been president, over 1.5 million illegal immigrants have poured across the border during Biden's yet first unfulfilled year in office. There's still more time to go. Now, most of them have been admitted into the U.S., just processed. There's no COVID testing. There's no vaccine mandates. There's no background check of radical associations. There's no means test to see if they'll be able to financially take care of themselves and not be a burden to the American people. And Biden, on top of all of that, now, when my kids would get in trouble, they get in trouble, not usually for what they did, but if they lied about it. Biden is now lying to the American people every day. And he is definitely not deporting them. That part we know. It is one big lie, border lie, as the New York Post put it. That's why they continue to come in droves. But according to Jen Psaki, the border is certainly not open. Just like she said, we don't need to COVID test them because they're not going to be here very long. Another lie. Take a look.
Why should somebody, say, in Laredo, Texas, or El Paso, or Tucson, Arizona, have to have their chance of catching COVID go up because hundreds of miles away there's an open border?
Well, there certainly is not an open border. We are continuing to employ our immigration proceedings and process and restrictions at the border.
Now, Jen can try and spin this however she wants, but the video and the images, they don't lie. The conditions on the ground, they're so bad. Biden's special envoy to Haiti actually resigned in protest because of the inhumane crisis he created at the border. As we speak, Border Patrol agents, they're now dealing with an impossible situation. The Biden administration is now thanking them by launching accusations of racism. Well, Border Patrol agents are fighting back, and they're mad tonight. We'll tell you about that in a minute. But according to Democrats, there's nothing wrong with the horrific conditions under that Del Rio Bridge, where over 10,000 illegal immigrants are stacked on top of each other in squalid conditions. Instead, the real problem, they're saying those racist horses and racist Border Patrol officers that ride the horses were trying to do their jobs. Biden now is accusing them, and I love this. They're now going to investigate their own policies, accusing them of whipping migrants. And now they have banned the use of any horses at the border. In response, the Border Patrol Union Chief, who will join us tonight, Brandon Judd, is accusing Biden of outright lying and deflecting. Look, I'll be honest, I'm not the best horse rider in the world. As a matter of fact, I was out on horseback with Border Patrol. It didn't go very well because the horse took off and I had to be saved. But that looks like a rein. That's what they call it. The reins of the horse to control the horse and not a whip. And some of the reins are long ones. The last time I was on that horse, there you go. That horse right there nearly threw me off on my backside. It took off, almost ended up in Mexico. But I can assure you there's nothing racist about patrolling the border on horseback, except I'm not the greatest horseback rider. The real problem, we're in the middle of a pandemic. This is a massive super spreader event. There's no end in sight. And Joe Biden can try and deflect. He can take days off. He can spend weekends on a beach in Delaware riding his little tricycle or whatever you call that bicycle thing of his. He can twiddle his thumbs. He can take his nappy poo and he can have his warm milky. But the American people, they deserve better. Our hostages in Afghanistan deserve better. America now sees what a disaster it is to have a weak, frail, and a cognitive mess as a president. According to a new Harvard-Harris poll, a majority of you, the American people, think that Trump absolutely was a better president than Joe Biden. Frankly, an understatement.